Thanks, Bernie. You should never admit what you're putting down your septic tank as well. You never know who's listening. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me along to speak here. I was talking with Tim Clifford yesterday. I rang him ahead of coming down here to get directions and maybe see what he offered breakfast and that, which he did, but I didn't make it this morning in time. I was saying to him that I had nothing prepared for this, but we both agreed that if we couldn't stand up and talk about septic tanks and treatment systems for a few minutes, there was something wrong. So what I did before I left the house was I was just having a look at the Engineers Ireland website, and interestingly, during the week, the Director General, John Power, came out with a press release. And what he basically said was he was welcoming in the legislation, and again, my opinions are more than Kevin's are my own, and not those of Engineers Ireland. What he said in reference to the amended legislation, the Water Services Amendment Bill, and that was he welcomed in the inspector or the proposal for inspectors to come out and look at septic tanks, etc. But what he said was, given that inspectors will be assessing whether or not a system constitutes or is likely to constitute a risk to human health or the environment, it is essential that only registered, accredited professionals with verified expert knowledge, skills and competences are appointed to any panel of inspectors. Furthermore, where systems are found to constitute or to be likely to constitute a risk to human health or the environment, it is essential that the recommended remedy is proposed only by a fully informed, registered professional who can consider the most appropriate, fit-for-purpose solution using problem-solving and specialist design skills, with the end solution being fully covered by professional indemnity insurance. So, very interesting. When you break that down into what he's saying, into the simple, just take a few points from it. The first one, constituting a risk to human health or the environment. Well, we know that there are some nasty things in wastewater. David has covered some of them there as well. I mean, you've got everything from nitrates, phosphates, and other sorts of chemicals from detergents and that. You've got greases, and then you get onto the really nasty stuff like E. coli, fecal coliforms, protozoa, viruses, etc. So it's very important that we treat wastewater appropriately and dispose of it correctly as well. In many years gone past, I think 1975 was in the first SR6 was released by OLIS at the time. That was solely concerned with public health and protecting public health, so it was very much out of sight, out of mind. You get your septic tank effluent and just get rid of it, so long as it's not above ground and not where it can come into direct contact with a member of the public. That was the idea, but subsequent documents like SR691 and the EPA Code of Practice have now concerned themselves with environmental issues as well. So a lot of people need to realise if your septic tank has been in, pre-91, the chances are that it wasn't designed with the environmental protection in mind. And when I say septic tanks, I should of course say on-site treatment systems, because it covers everything: septic tanks, proprietary treatment systems, filter systems, all that type of stuff. Second thing John Power made reference to was registered accredited professionals with expert knowledge, skills and competences. And the examples that he gave were problem-solving skills. And, I mean, these are problem sites. You need an engineered solution. You need somebody who can spot the problems, who's got hard experience, not somebody who's looking at a code of practice or something and ticking boxes like the cabin experience, for example. Specialist design skills, and this is a key thing, to engineer a solution that's going to work for whatever the criteria the homeowner sets out. David made reference there to desludging a system once per annum. There should be desludged once per annum. Now, just to clarify, I would never go so far as to say that you should desludge it once per annum. In fact, sludge build-up of 18 to 24 months then allows for anaerobic digestion to take place. So your system can get a lot more, you can get a more efficient treatment process and effluent breakdown if you allow sludge to build up for over 2 years. But that's really down to the homeowner to specify to a designer, say, I've got X number of bedrooms, I've Y number of people in the house, I want the system to be desludged maybe only once every 5 years. From time to time we have a fry and we wash the frying pan in the sink, so design a system to cater for this, and a competent designer should be able to pull together a package that will take all these requirements in. It's like you go in to buy a car, you don't just walk in and say, I want a car, and they say, well, there's one, and you drive out. You have requirements, you've got needs, and it's when you explain those to a competent designer, he will apply his skills to come up with a solution for you. That kind of leads in as well to the other thing John referred to, which was the most appropriate fit-for-purpose solution. Now again, is that an off-the-shelf type system where, you know, somebody comes around to your site and says, right, you're building a house or you're upgrading your septic tank, take your pick from one of these three systems. And I would argue that it's not. You know, it has to be a process of the professional sitting down with the homeowner and discussing the requirements. Is it a CE marked or an Irish Agricultural Board certified system? I mean, these are all just sort of buzzwords that are there. Just because a treatment plant has a CE mark doesn't mean it's fit for purpose for your requirements. That just means that it has passed a test in a laboratory. It doesn't mean that it has effluent coming out of the back end of it that's good enough for your particular application, or that it has been designed correctly. It's merely a tool. Well, actually, CE marking, and I should know because I worked for long enough in developing the EN standard with SEN. But the whole idea of it is to harmonise the setup in Europe and to allow free trade. So it's to allow German manufacturers and French manufacturers to sell in Ireland and Irish manufacturers to sell in England. It's not to guarantee that the homeowner is getting the correct system. Same with Irish Agricultural Board certificates, they carry disclaimers, and when something carries a disclaimer, it's not worth the paper it's written on, really. The end solution then, as John pointed out, should be fully covered by professional indemnity insurance. This is a really key thing. You know, somebody who's put in a septic tank or a treatment plant, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years ago, whatever, that's now facing into having it upgraded, they've got a very tough task ahead of them. You've got things like the EPA Code of Practice that people will be talking about, again, disclaimer inside the front cover. So everything in that document has to be regarded as suspect, and you tread cautiously, and local authorities have pulled together panels of approved site assessors, but again, that's not guaranteeing that you're going to get the right person for the job. These panels, local authorities will basically force you to use somebody from their panel to do a site assessment, but you know, the site assessment procedure requires design recommendations, amongst other things, to be given, and a lot of site assessors may not have the relevant qualifications, competencies, as well as professional indemnity insurance. Professional indemnity insurance for assessing a site is one thing, but professional indemnity insurance for designing an on-site treatment system is a different beast altogether. So again, from the point of view of caveat emptor and let the homeowner beware and the buyer beware, that's really, nobody else is going to do this for you. Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about it as well. How many times have you heard somebody talk about their septic tank system or their on-site treatment system and say that thing has been in for 30 years and it's never given a day's trouble? It happens all over the country, and you know, fair enough, it hasn't given a day's trouble because the system has been designed. It was maybe a 19th century solution to a 21st century problem, as it was referred to before. But you know, our water usage practices and the sort of things that we put down systems and a whole host of other things have changed over the years. So, you know, to say that it's in 30 years and hasn't caused any trouble, sure, it hasn't caused you trouble, it hasn't been backing up, but God knows what's been going out into the environment. And it just reminded me of a lecture I took many years ago in construction law course, but the lecturer this time was Professor Mail G. Bunny, who's an international construction contract arbitrator. And his lecture was specifically on risk and insurance, and in it he covered Murphy's Law and Paddy's Law for some strange reason, but one of Paddy's laws states that if everything seems to be going well, then you don't know what's going on. And I feel that kind of applies to the whole septic tank setup as well. Now, personally, I don't really care about legislation. My thoughts on this thing are, don't correct your issues that you have with your on-site treatment system because Phil Hogan tells you to do it, or the Department of the Environment tells you to do it, or because the European Court of Justice tells you to do it. Do it because it's the right thing to do. And I'll just finish up on that note with a quote that it's one that I heard many years ago and I've always liked it, but it was by, I think, Thomas Jefferson. He said, "Man by necessity must be governed by either power within him or without of him." So do it, and then you won't have to worry about legislators and local authority guys coming out to your sites. Thank you. Yeah.